Hello, in this video I'm going to show you proper hand placement and two casts that you can use when using a spin casting reel on a casting rod setup. When you're getting ready to make a cast with any setup, you want to find the hand position that's most comfortable for you. With a spin casting reel on a casting rod, I like to take my index finger and put it forward of the trigger. That puts my thumb in a really good position to press the release button. You might find that you like to take 4 fingers and put them aft or behind the trigger, or you might find that you like to take both your index finger and your middle finger and put them forward of the trigger. It all depends on what's most comfortable for you when you're preparing to actually make a cast. Another thing you want to consider is the distance between your lure and your rod tip. Preferably, you want to have 6 to 8 inches. Reason being, if you have too much line out, it's going to make it very difficult to perform your cast with any accuracy at all, and it can also make your cast potentially dangerous. If you have too much line reeled in and you have the lure all the way up at the tip of your rod, it can get all tangled up and you can actually break the tip of your rod when trying to make a cast. So you want to make sure you have that 6 to 8 inch distance. Also, you might notice that this rod is a right-handed retrieve. So if you are right-handed, after you perform your cast, you're going to have to switch hands to actually use the crank to reel in your lure. When I switch hands to retrieve the lure, I like to take both my ring finger and my middle finger and put those forward or in front of that trigger. I then like to take my index finger up over the rod and in front of the reel like this, and then use my thumb to grip the housing, sort of cupping the entire reel in my left hand. This way I have good control of the rod and I can easily use my right hand to use the crank to retrieve the lure. Now, you can do this a couple different ways. As I mentioned before, it's whatever is most comfortable for you. You might use 2 fingers to grip the rod. You might keep all 3 fingers forward of the trigger. You might put all 4 of your fingers forward of the trigger. It's all about finding the most comfortable position and what you prefer the best. The first cast that I'm going to introduce you to is called the overhead cast. Whenever you're going to make a cast with any setup, the first thing you want to do is acquire a target out on the water. So I've now acquired a target. I want to take note of any obstructions. I have a tree as an obstruction on my right. So now I've acquired a target. I'm going to get my proper hand placement. I'm going to press the release button, ensuring not to release it. I'm going to load the rod by bringing the reel up by my ear and over my shoulder. Pick out my target, bring the rod forward with speed. When the rod tip is pointed directly at my target, that's when I'm going to release the button. A lot of these casts are all about timing. Switch hands, and I'm going to use my right hand to use the crank to retrieve the lure. And we'll perform the overhead cast one more time. 6 to 8 inches between my lure and my rod tip. Press the button, do not release it. Load the rod by bringing the reel up by my ear, the rod tip over my shoulder. Target acquired, release that button when the rod tip is pointed towards the target. The next cast I'm going to introduce you to is the sidearm cast. Now, the reason you may find yourself alternating between the two casts is if you have any obstructions either above you or off to your side. In the case of the sidearm cast, you might have some branches or a bridge or something obstructing your cast. So, same thing with hand position. I'm going to press the trigger. I'm going to press the button. Bring this to my side like this. Acquire a target, and I'm going to release that button when the rod tip is pointed towards my target. Switch hands to retrieve. We'll perform the sidearm cast one more time. Ensuring 6 to 8 inches between the lure and the rod tip. Press the button with my thumb. Load the rod off to my side. Forward, release. And that's the overhead cast and the sidearm cast using a spin casting reel on a casting rod setup.